Welcome to today's statistics tutorial. Today we are going to cover how to solve normal distribution probability questions. Before we solve for our probabilities, let's understand how to read this graph. The probabilities are going to be the shaded area under the graph. So if I have an empty graph, that's going to give me a 0% probability. If my graph is completely shaded, that's going to give me a 100% probability. And if my graph is partially full or partially filled, that's going to give me a portion. So if it's halfway full, that's going to be a 50% probability. And on this graph, that's going to be represented by a decimal. Along the x-axis is going to be my x values or my z-score values. And that's where we have our mean, our 0, and these are all these values along the x-axis, and they're going to be spaced based on your standard deviation. For the examples that we're going to show, we're going to be using x values, but if your problem gives you a z-score value and wants to solve for a probability, or if it gives you a probability and wants to solve for a z-score, you can use this exactly the same. It's just where you see the x, you're going to replace that with your z-score value. And the numbers along the x-axis, those are either going to be x values or z-scores, whichever that you're solving for, but the way that it's calculated is exactly the same. Now let's look at how to solve some probability questions. Our first question says, what is the probability that x is less than 20? So if we were to graph that, what would we expect? We would expect that for some value 20, we're going to want to know this probability. And so we want to find the probability that x is going to be somewhere between 0 and 20. And so we want to know what is the shaded area. That's going to give me my probability. So that means I'm going to use this first box. I want the probability that x is going to be less than 20. So I'm going to put 20 in my box. Let's use a mean of 24, standard deviation of 6. So I need to go ahead and change those. 24 and 6. I've already got my calculator is normally distributed. I've put in my mean. I've put in my standard deviation. I'm going to put my probability into, I'm going to use this first box because I'm looking for values of x that are less than 20. Then I hit the calculate button and it's going to give me the graph. The shaded part is going to show me the percentage, and this in red is going to give me my answer. And it's going to give me my percentage written as a decimal point. If I'm going to be rounding them to the 4 digits after the decimal, then my answer is going to be 0.2525. And this is the same as saying that I have a 25.25% probability of finding x, that my x value is going to be somewhere between 0 and 20, or my x is going to be less than 20. You'll notice here on the graph where the purple and the white meet, that's where your 20 value is here on the x-axis, and the shaded part tells me where the probability is that I have solved. And using this graph to be able to visually see that what we calculated matched what we expected, it's going to be in a left tail test. When you have something that is less than, the other types of words you might find are shorter or fewer. So anything in your word problem that tells you that you're looking for something smaller than what the number that they gave you, that tells you that you're going to use this first probability calculation. Our next question says, what is the probability x is greater than 30? So once again, let's draw pictures so that we can look at what are we expecting. We've got some value 30 and we want greater than. So that means we're looking for the numbers 30 and bigger. So we're going to want the shaded area going to the right. So that means we're going to want the values of x that are greater than 30. So I'm going to use this second box, put my 30 in that value. Once again, let's use our example of a mean with 24, standard deviation of 6. I've got it already put in from our last problem, and we've got normal distribution, so all of our values are correct. We're going to hit the calculate button, and we see that it is shaded on the right. Starting at 30 is where our x value is, and then our percentage is the shaded part. So it gave us an answer of 0.15865. Once again, if I'm going to round it to, oops, I did that. I went down instead of up. If I'm going to round it to the nearest 4 digits, that's going to be 0.1587. That's going to be my answer. And that tells me I have a 15.87% probability that my x value with a mean of 24, standard deviation of 6, that my x value will be a number greater 30 or greater. Other words that might also qualify besides greater, it might be the words longer, larger, more. Anything that indicates that we're looking for the value of 30 and greater. Anything bigger, that's going to tell you you're going to use this second probability calculation, and you're going to expect a right-tailed test. Our next problem says, what is the probability x is between 15 and 25? So if I'm going to draw this graph, I'm looking for values between 15 and 25. So I'm wanting to know the area between these two numbers and what is the probability that my x value is I'm going to be able to find an x between these two values. So let's use the mean of 24, standard deviation of 6. We've already got those plugged into our calculator. This time we're looking for a range of values, so we're going to use this third probability calculator. We're going to put in the probability that my x is greater than 15 and less than 25. So it's between these two values. Click on calculate. Oh, and I didn't put any numbers, so it's not going to calculate anything for me. So that's 15 and 25. Click on the calculate. You'll notice we've got a shaded portion with, this is a two-tailed test. The middle portion is going to give me my percentage. It's giving me an answer of 0.49937 rounded to 4 digits is going to give me a 4. So this is going to be my answer. And that tells me my probability is a 49.94% probability that my X value will be between these two numbers, between 15 and 25. So that means this shaded area is a 49.94% probability that my X value is going to be located between those two values. So anytime they give you a range, or looking for a probability between a range of two numbers, then you're going to use this third probability calculation. I hope you have found this helpful. See the links below for additional supports and resources and the online calculator link. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next video.